Hi, everybody. This is Stack Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Shubhangi, and today we have Sarah with us. Welcome, Sarah, to the show. Sarah is a data engineer and a very active member of the data community. She has a lot of experience in data quality, data governance, and working all sorts of data stuff. She is also a co organizer for PBI Brum, which is a local user group in Birmingham, and also attends and speaks at very large events and conferences. I've also personally met her at two of them, Data Scotland, obviously, and then PBI Birmingham. So, welcome, Sarah, to the show. Anything you would like to add to your introduction?
No, but just it's really nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. So, I think, obviously, because you have so much experience, I think the first question would totally make sense to ask about your technology journey. Like, how did you end up in this career? Is it something you thought right in the beginning that, hey, this is the area I want to work in, and this just happened, over the course of time, or you learn more about some stuff about data, and you're like, hey, this is the place I want to be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite old, so there wasn't really computing taught at school when I went to school, but I did philosophy at university, and one of my favourite things was just the logic, because you learn logic as part of your way of arguing when you're talking about philosophy. And I remember talking to someone, and he was just like, "Oh, that's the same as programming. Maybe you should do programming when you stop doing the degree." And so I went on and did a conversion to masters and learned how to program Java. And I just kind of fell in love with the whole database modules. And then just sort of, yeah, over time, he sort of walked into kind of more of a data role. That was just where I really enjoyed being. And it's interesting actually, because now we talk a lot about things like semantics and ontologies, and actually those are words that was thinking about doing my philosophy degree. But yeah, that's my journey into data.
Okay, so like, would you say there is any specific aspect of like, working with data that you enjoy the most? Like any particular part of it? Because, like there are people who like, working on the back end, like, data modeling, that databases, and then there are people who
Yeah.
love visualizations and front end reporting.
So I think of myself as a data engineer.
Yep.
Before the term data engineer came around, I used to think of myself more like a data plumber, because it's a lot to
Yeah.
do with like pipelines.
Yeah.
So I really love making sure data gets to where it needs to be useful. I think that kind of sums up what data engineering is. It's like putting data in the place and in the shape
Yeah.
and with the right quality to make it useful for people. So that's what I like doing. And I do a little bit of visualization stuff, but really that's not my forte. I just sort of do it to make sure I understand what the needs are of people and what they need out of the data.
Yeah.
So that's my favourite bit about data engineering, and it's sort of a joke, but it is genuinely true. I love the green ticks that you get, like particularly with
Oh,
like a CI/CD pipeline.
yeah.
When you can see your stuff is deployed and you've got all the green ticks, there's nothing more pleasing.
Satisfying. Yeah, of course. That is actually quite relatable. Yeah. I have worked a little bit on some of the data engineering stuff, like in my first job, mostly ETL pipelines. And I can
Yes.
associate that feeling that when everything runs and there is no issue, there is no like red
Yeah,
cross coming across. So, hey, we
yeah,
are
yeah.
successful. So, yeah, I think that's, oh, that's nostalgia now. um, so I think, like, obviously, data engineering is in demand now quite a lot, actually, because of a lot
Sure.
of companies trying to implement AI. But then, like, I think the next question would probably, I've answered it already, but still, like, which technology do you think is currently being overhyped by media? And then also the one that would transform the way we work? And if you have any examples in the way you see, like, how the transformation will occur.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that yeah, the answers in the question was like AI. I'm a little bit bored of hearing about it, to be honest, but
Yeah.
also it has completely transformed the way we work. I mean, even my very experienced software engineering husband, he's got ChatGPT open all the time, just to make it just speeds up the work you have to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it replaces humans at all, because we still need humans to work out what the meaning of stuff is and what's the use of stuff, and actually, but it's a tool that is really useful, and it will be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
But I would love to see it solving problems in the world other than just being able to code stuff. Like, when is it going to sort of help us with things like climate change and stuff like that? It'd be nice
Yeah.
to see AI, and not, preferably not replacing artists' jobs. That would be ideal if it didn't do that. But it actually helps solve things. That'd be good.
Yeah, I think I think on that line I have one more thing to ask is like you might have seen recently there was a news that OpenAI has also launched ads on ChatGPT. Obviously, like the revenue part of using whole of the AI thing has now come into picture. So what's your I would say perspective on it? Like what do you think about uh do you think like having ads on an AI platform slash AI tool is something,
Oh, I see.
yeah, it's like
I
something
mean,
good?
that was predictable, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Um, I was saying, so that's just part of the yeah, the all this amazing stuff gets launched in the internet,
yeah.
and eventually it just becomes worse and worse and harder to use, mostly because of advertising, doesn't it? I mean, we're just really grateful that's not sort of gone into kind of Git, or GitHub hasn't sort of gone down that road. But it's got to happen, hasn't it? It's got to be paid for, and the only way it gets paid for is by advertising. So that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that is something which we did see coming in some capacity. So I'm not quite surprised that this has happened. I was like,
Yeah.
yay, finally we have it. I mean, finally it's happening.
I mean, I guess what will happen is more and more people it will just be one of the subscriptions that they have as part of their normal, like if you're subscribing to so much stuff now, like TV and music and everything, and AI subscriptions will just be one of those things that we'll be paying for monthly.
Yeah,
Something else.
yeah. Okay. I think the next question is gonna be around like more sort of your work, and then probably like you as a tech expert can like tell us what common data quality issues that you see are generally overlooked, and what would you say are the most common reasons that happens?
So I feel like, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this as well. I feel like data quality is something that data platform teams complain about frequently, but quite often feel disempowered to actually fix, because often the quality issues need to be fixed by, say, the user entering the data at the front end.
Yeah.
So data teams might put in processes to capture issues, like if the numbers are way out of range or if the data types are wrong and all that stuff. And you might get this sort of like errors happening. But what I haven't seen enough really is sort of really good data governance. So setting down what the data should be and what it should mean and what the definitions of that data is, and then having really good automated testing for the data platform. I've just not, it's the sort of thing that data platform teams have talked about achieving, but no one's got the time to do it. So I'm not a
Yeah.
consultant, and I've generally worked for kind of just normal organisations that are just trying to get their data platform to work to any extent. And these nice to have in terms of quality,
Yeah.
just no one gets around to them, and it doesn't help that quite often the testing tools are very expensive. It just requires a sort of level of time and expense to set it up. It just ends up not happening. So I would say the main thing is just any kind of data quality, data testing, data governance process.
Okay.
There's just not enough. And I do wonder if actually this is one of the things that AI might help us do, as AI speeds up our day-to-day work.
Yeah.
Maybe data teams will have more capacity to actually do this sort of like quality governance side, which is really important.
Yeah, I think you are quite right. I think there's generally a lot of gap in like how the data is entered, how it's managed, and obviously governed. I think I do see that AI has a good use case in that area in the sense like it can free up some of the repetitive tasks or things that we do manually maybe at the moment. At least in some organization it's still the case. Data maturity is like a thing a lot of organizations have not reached completely yet, and which is quite surprising because in order to use AI effectively, obviously data is needed at the end of the day. It's not like it's not some magic wand which is happening. I think there are multiple reasons probably this happens. Like I've seen when platform migration happens, for example, if you're using one platform and you migrate from another, and there is an engineering team involved. they do the migration, but then there is a lack of like documentation, understanding, or like how the tables have been, let's say restructured. And then like you tend to start use that data for analysis or maybe data science projects, and then sometimes it's unclear where the gap sits, like, and then people start to reconcile numbers, for example. So these kind of issues keep on like coming up. So have you had any such experiences, and any inputs, like how do you tackle those kind of situations?
Yeah. So, well, one of the things I mean, there's lots of ways of doing governance,
Yeah,
and governance is understanding what the data is that you
yeah,
have, and it's so important. And it's only governance is only going to get more and more important with AI,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So it's super important. And I think it's really important when you don't go about setting out what your meanings, what your definitions are, what your data rules are, what your quality rules are,
Yeah,
got to plug that into a process that then is used. So you can't just write all your definitions and put them in a library and no one looks at them apart from maybe the AI,
yeah,
the agents. You need someone to be It needs to be a constant thing where someone's managing it, and
yeah,
it actually is maybe presenting, say, data quality metrics is maybe presented back to the data stewards, and they can actually see, oh, my definitions and my rules are being applied, and I can see that the data quality is good or the data quality is improving, that sort of thing. So plugging it into a process, making sure that humans are involved and that process is being monitored and managed is probably key, and not just doing it as a box ticking exercise, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. Of course, it does make sense. I think the next question is gonna be a nice follow-up on this one. What methods would you recommend to evaluate data quality, methodology, and insights? Like any specific methods apart from obviously the one we discussed just now?
Yeah, so I mean, um, as I say, like I've not seen data governance or data quality being done to an like extremely high good standard, and there will be companies out there that are doing it, but I've not witnessed it myself, so not got a great experience where I can come and say, "Oh, this is what you need to do." But I think there are a few things that I would expect, and one of them is to make sure you have some governance information, data quality rules, and that data is stored in a structured format, and it could be any format, but not like just in Word or something like that. It should be in a CSV or JSON or YAML or something like that.
Yeah,
And as long as it's in a format that you can have in a structured way, you can change it and you can put it somewhere else, but ideally not in a proprietary sort of tool. So don't buy a data governance tool, put all your data in there without knowing that you're going to be able to take it out and put it somewhere else in case you need to change your tool set. 'Cause it's always
yeah,
good to be tool agnostic. And then the other thing is I try and make sure I've got some kind of automation of testing. So I did a talk last year about using CAT, which I'm not affiliated with at all, but it was just a really affordable, easy to use. I think it's probably based on PyTest, so like you could be using PyTest, but CAT just makes it a bit kind of more user friendly for a team that aren't super technical. And I've set that up to test Power BI, but you could set it up to test anything, any of
yeah,
your data platform objects. So try and get your testing up and running, and that helps are my quality rules good and is my data good? And then you can, work from there and start small, like just get a few tests in there and just build it up as you go, but make it part of your project from day one. Don't leave it till you 5 years down the road and it's overwhelming trying to set it up. Just make sure it's in there really early.
yeah. No, I think that's a really good answer. I think like finding the right method is kind of really important, like frameworks essentially that work well for the kind of data you have and systems you have in place. So I think this is something like people can take away from this conversation at the very least, that that these are the data quality issues, these are some of the methods they can use to like solve them, or like approaches they can use. I think the next question I also want to ask is, like, obviously, like, I don't want to go back to AI, but here we are. Um, like, how do you as a data engineer in any capacity use AI at the moment to like automate some stuff maybe, or like repeat like repetitive tasks?
That's a good question. So I've used it a lot to help me write Python. in the
Hmm.
last year. So I've started a year ago, not knowing much Python, but I built loads of Python applications in the last year with the help of AI. So that's been brilliant.
Yeah.
And then another thing I've done is working with the governance team where I work. I've taken a load of like business rules that have been written by humans, basically like definitions that you'd put in a dictionary. And I've passed it through some AI and I've said, can you please extract for me quality rules? So that's getting something that's a little bit more programmatic. So from a rule that might say something about that only a human would really understand, and getting out, for this term, we should have a completeness rule, we should have a range rule, we should have a validity rule, and then you can plug that into a process that can programmatically test those and like build your automated testing from that. So I found that quite useful and it saved me a lot of time. I also did a thing with a conceptual data model. I gave AI some diagrams that had been drawn by someone who was my predecessor. And
Yeah.
then I asked the AI to turn it into a load of JSON files that I could then use as a source for doing diagram as code.
Yeah.
So it's been a really useful tool, I have to say, in the last year. It's been brilliant. Yeah, how about you? Have you used it for anything?
Yeah, I think no, I did like the fact that you mentioned that you used it to convert your diagram into like the JSON code, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
was
I
quite
mean,
pleasing.
yeah, it is quite pleasing. I mean, yeah, obviously, like loads. Like I used it for like some of the coding pieces of work. For example, like if I'm writing some sort of big queries or like any code, for example, which involves CT or like any kind of like bigger queries I'm trying to build. So like just simplifying the code and like also brainstorming ideas. Made some small automations as well out of it, like essentially to like automate some of my bits. For example, can't say all the things, but like I would say, like if you give me a set of data, I can like generate some set of automated metrics out of it to determine like a complete new set of data. So yeah, did some cool bits. I think it's quite useful. It's just you have to find the right use case that fits your narrative, I would say, or the project you are in or the organization you are working for. Like you can take whichever context.
Yeah.
So I
Okay, but just before, because we were talking about methodologies and how we go about doing data quality, data governance, and I do think there's something around, and I don't not really clear on it, but there's something about ownership. So, you know, building out a bunch of governance that you're just then floating around in the cloud, but no one actually validates it or owns it. Like I feel like there should be an ownership
ownership.
issue around like when you've got terms that have been written, who has written them and why are they valid? I do think we need to tie things back to actual humans sometimes
Yeah,
and not just sort of, oh, the AI is dealing with it.
I
I
think
don't
sort of
know. Does that
accountability,
ring through at all?
like sort of accountability is probably the word, isn't it? Like who's
Yeah,
gonna own it, who's accountable? Yeah, of course. I think like a lot of things are being created, but I feel like there isn't enough validation or verification done in many cases, which I think if you're planning to standardize something, a process, a framework, or something like that, I think it's important to like I believe there should be multiple rounds of testing, verification, and validations done. Essentially, if you're using any kind of generative AI in any capacity.
yeah,
I mean, like people do it normally, but with AI, 100%, you have to do it. That's my take on it because it just ensures that like whatever you are creating is reliable in the first place and sustainable as well, not just something
yeah.
which will fake. Like it
I mean, I
shouldn't.
guess one of the hardest things about
Yeah,
doing a technical project
yeah,
is getting requirements and making sure that whatever is built meets those requirements.
yeah,
And in a way, that's what's going to be happening going forwards, isn't it? Because we need to say to the AI, these are my requirements. If you go outside of these bounds, you've done the wrong thing and we need to
exactly.
redo it so that you're actually putting those guardrails in and making sure that whatever comes out of the AI process is valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like again, like yeah, having some sort of accountability or subject matter expert. Um, if you're using AI in your pipeline, then like making sure there are validations or checks involved. I think these are the things which are important. And I think testing again, because whatever outcomes you get, you can prove if your whatever structure you have built is right or not. Without that, there is no evidence really, that to prove that it's
Yeah.
actually worth it. So
Yeah.
I would say that
So I
these are
feel
some.
like, sorry, carry on.
No, I was gonna say these are some of the things which I personally like when people work with in general also, and obviously with generative AI also. I would say, yeah,
Yeah. Well, all I was going to say is the gov the governance, all the stuff that I think have been felt optional until recently,
yeah,
governance, automated testing, quality, is it's way more important. Like everything else can be AI'd, but if you don't have those processes around governance, quality,
yeah,
you're you're not on the right footing to go down the AI road, basically, unless you've done
yeah.
all that.
You know, okay, like I think this might be a quite good question as a follow-up. I've heard two terms like data governance and there is AI governance, right? It's
Oh,
like,
right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, floating around now. And okay, I thought governance is like a thing, like, the main thing. Why do you think we have decided, or like industry has decided to make two terminologies like data and then AI governance?
I have never heard of AI governance,
Okay.
so I don't. Well, can you tell me what that is?
I mean, it's mostly like making and building safe, reliable AI products, and then it's just like I feel like it's an extension of what data governance essentially stands for. But
So,
again, like definitions can be different, from people to people.
so if data governance is about defining what your data is, how it should be used,
Yeah,
and then the AI kind of like often will read the data governance, won't it, to understand the data and then be
yeah,
generating new stuff.
yeah,
So then is AI governance something different to that, or is it like
yeah.
checking that the AI is being ethical? Is
Ethical, yeah,
that what AI governance? Oh,
yeah,
okay, fair enough. Yeah,
yeah.
so it
So
is
it's
different.
yeah, it's wrapped around more like on the lines of like safe, reliable, ethical, secure AI. So I was like, I saw this term flying around quite recently. So I was like, I need to like dig a bit more, like, what this, stands for. Because until now, like data governance is the only word which most of the people would have heard, especially in the data community or industry. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting new thing again.
Another new thing. We're always getting the new things, aren't we, in the data world?
Yeah. So, as I said in the start, right, like a lot of data engineering roles are slightly on the rise compared to other roles in the market because everybody wants to implement AI workflows and things. And obviously, data has to be right because your data quality needs to be really good for AI to actually operate well. And I get a bunch of questions from people asking about, hey, I want to find a role in data engineering today. So, what recommendations would you place or would you put forward? Any two, three recommendations for somebody who is looking out for a role, let's say in data engineering today, obviously, and needs to stay like ahead of the curve, and like obviously what skills to build as well for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't have a very good answer for this, but I would want, if I was employing a data engineer, this is
Yeah,
how I'm going to answer the question.
yeah,
I would want them to know SQL and Python.
yeah,
Um, I would want them to understand lots of concepts about how data moves around. So things like understanding how to do a delta or watermarks, understanding about scheduling and reloading and what happens if you have to add a new column to a very big table, things like that. But one of the key things will be um, just be able to communicate, because I think a lot of data is about communication, isn't it? It's about
yeah,
using terms and having a good grasp of meaning. So being able to communicate is really important, probably more important than all the other tech stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, if you're someone who's coming out of university and you're looking for a career in data engineering, I mean, there's so much. It's really overwhelming. I think all of the different tech stacks there are. There's so many different corners of data engineering. Actually, data engineering sort of means lots of different things depending on where you work, which industry you're in, things like that. So try and find your niche and focus there and really try and get some experience in that area. So if you care, so I don't think data engineering means someone who's working with visuals. I think that's more like a data analyst or a data scientist. Um, so if that's your bag, focus on the data science roles. Data engineering probably means you need to learn some new tech stacks like Databricks, like Fabric, like Snowflake, DBT. There's loads of stuff about data modeling is really important. So understanding things like conceptual data models, logical data models is really key.
Yeah.
Um, well, and then I love going to, I mean, obviously I organise a local group, but there's all this free learning out there. So go along to a meetup, go along to some of these free conferences that happen, like SQL Bits Saturday. Just go along to random talks. You never know where you're going to get that kind of like bright spark of an idea. It might take you down a road that's going to inspire you. But just try and get experience, like as much experience as possible. Like, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's you can always mess around with all the free tools that are around. And just play around, learn your skills, and then try and make useful products. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good advice. So the last bit, essentially, I remember somebody else also gave the same advice to like, go around for like, these meetups and user groups, like find the ones you want to go and the skills you want to build and then learn because, learning is free. Like it's available. A lot of things are happening around. Um, so I think with that, we have come to the end of all the questions that we have on this episode, but we have a last segment, which is the rapid fire round. I'll ask you a bunch
Okay,
of questions. You have to just answer in like one single word. Maybe two or three words is gonna be fine as well if you
I'll
want
try
to
and
just,
stick to
yeah.
one.
So it's not gonna be super hard. It's really simple, just mostly about technology. So the first question is favorite programming language.
Sequel,
Okay, great. Obviously, first programming language that you learned.
Java,
Java. Favorite tool, Power BI or Tableau?
Power BI,
Okay, nice. Which chart would you prefer to show, like categorical data? A bar chart, a column chart, or a pie chart?
column chart,
And why?
column chart, column.
Okay, donut chart or pie chart?
uh, neither.
Okay, one AI tool, um, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, either of them which you like to use in your day-to-day work, or it could be any like third tool as well, maybe Perplexity or something, which you use for your day-to-day work and you like highly recommend using it.
Well, I want to say Claude, but I've not actually used it. I've just heard it's amazing.
Okay,
So I've used Gemini most of all. I think
okay,
Gemini.
okay, Gemini. R or Python?
Sorry, which in Python?
R,
What is,
R programming
oh,
or Python?
Python.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know R. I'm not an R developer.
Okay. If you are given one topic to choose to like deliver a talk, like one single topic, what would you title it as?
So if I had one topic to talk about,
Yeah.
green ticks.
Okay. So what would you title the session as? Let's say with green ticks, obviously.
Um, I can't. I can't come up with
Okay.
anything.
Okay, that's fine. So I guess so this is the last question we had on the rapid fire. And that's like the end of it. So thank you again, Sarah, for joining me with on this show. We are glad to have you. And thank you again. We'll come back again on the next episode with a new guest. And you will find this episode on my YouTube channel. Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Bye.